Well, we're on the air. Uh, January, February, March, April. We're just into April 2023. One of the big questions out there is what's going to happen to the American dollar? And that's fairly easy to figure out. You're on YouTube, and we must have realtors, very few bankers. We have realtors, we have marketing people, we have producers, transportation, aviation. Uh, these are areas that in my lifetime America excelled in these areas, and nobody could beat us. Uh, it was it was right after World War II that Americans were happy. The ones that had survived, that had returned home, went on the GI Bill, went back to college, went back to the university. From the military, we had a lot of expansion of technology. And my age, as a kid, when I was a teenager, we just barely had television. Uh, we had Bullwinkle, but we had things real good, and they seemed to be getting better. And we had our problems. We had our problems, but I've lived through the Korean. It's easy for me to say the police action, and then we went along with that. And it seemed to be the bad guys were the communists, and the good guys were made out to be the capitalists. And especially we had the Republicans that represented corporate structure and the job givers, and then we had Jimmy Hoffa and the boys that were the opposition. But it was pretty fair. We had J. Edgar Hoover, and we had the mafia, and then we had old Joe Kennedy. Uh, but the only reason we had a little bump in the road there was that one of the conspiracy beliefs is that Kennedy had wronged the people by saying he was going to bring back the American dollar. He was going to bring back the greenback, the silver certificate. And Kennedy and his brother had probably they had hundreds of people that hated them with a passion. He was Catholic, so we all thought the Pope was going to run the show, and then he was screwing around with the mafia. Old Joe's got a big history with the mafia. Uh, the CIA, they didn't like him because he pulled the air cover off of the Bay of Pigs operation at the last moment. He wasn't doing well in Vietnam. He was getting bogged down in French Indochina, as it was called there for a while. And this started to cost money. But we had good money. Our money meant something. And we had, as I used to say, we had the best politicians money could buy. And money has always made a deal like, what's it worth? Who will do it for what? So we grew up there, and a lot of stuff was just said to be. That's the way it was going to be, and don't call back and don't look back. And we got ourselves involved in Vietnam. Now there must be 300 books and personal experience of how we got ourselves involved over there. Were we really there to uh, well, as MacArthur said, the domino theory. Communism attracts some of the more stupid people in the world, and communism promises, hey, we're all going to be equal. And that smacks of people living out in the jungle or living out in the desert or somewhere like that, or even living up in Sino-Soviet Russia. Communism looked to be, well, it's a nice idea. And then when the wrong people get in place, you don't have much of a choice. Um, we kill you, or you go along with it, and you do the best you can. And with YouTube here, you can take any piece of history, and in an afternoon, you can damn near be an expert on any little piece of history of who won, what, where, and why, how we got involved in Iran and Afghanistan to begin with, and the British were there before us, and the Suez Canal, and the Arabs, and who were the Arabs, and the Jews wanted a little piece of the action over there, so they all left Hollywood, and they moved to Tel Aviv. No, they didn't. 3 books that you should read about Jewish people is one was called Our Gang. Another one was called The Rest of Us. I think it was James Bamford. And then there's a few other Jews that came along, and they didn't all get along with each other. But they all thought it was God's will that they all return to this little place in Palestine. It's not worth a damn. I've been there 3 times, hung out for a while, and would you rather be there or in Beverly Hills? Well, a lot of the Jews made up their own mind. Oh, there's another book called A Kingdom of Our Own. Very enlightening about the Jews that had gotten into the motion picture industry. And it was a natural kind of a thing because many Jews were in vaudeville, and they owned Nickelodeons in Coney Island. But anyway, and we have this other book called The Creature from Jekyll Island, and you don't have to read any other books on that. We figured out how the Federal Reserve was put together, and it was passed, gotten into, and then that's where the control of the money of the American dollar started. And it had all the best intentions, maybe, but that was 1913. Then we decided we got ourselves into another world war, and we had something called taxation. We always wonder, where did taxation come from? I mean, how did the colonies get along without taxation? And that was a little thing that people had to worry about, but not too much. And then we got into the 60s and into the 70s, and we had our little, things were going pretty good. So you could afford your cocaine or your pot or smoke it up or something like that. And it's all there to change your reality, basically. What may be the truth? You got alcohol. You got moonshine. Hell, I was back at Fort Bragg, and they had a guy in a old 49 40. He had always had some mason jars in the back of that stuff, and man, it's smooth. But it seems like everything that mankind would want, the government steps in, and they want a piece of the action, or they want to take it over. So nowadays you have big pharma, and King David only lived to be 70, and the rest of us, life expectancy is probably 68, 72, something like that. And if you talk about the first 12 years of that, you don't have much control over what happens to you. Then we go under the years that we could be educated, And then after that, we are blended into society, and we used to take up our station in society: plumber, fireman, cop, a carpenter. And that thing's got to be a lot of building, the building arts, and so that got us in running into the 80s. But by that time, we started to recognize that what the hell's happening? They're sending us. Uh, they're sending us all over the world to try to straighten these people that living out in the desert and the jungles. We're going to bring democracy to these people because they're just like we are. And that's what communism promised them. Only, that's where you have to read read the book 1984. It's a good book, and you can get it on audio. You don't have to do the laborious thing about reading about where it's at. You just listen to it, and you drive along. You listen to the whole thing. A lot of this stuff makes sense, and in a lot of books of how we got into Vietnam, how we didn't get out of Vietnam, how we got into Korea, and how we didn't get out of Korea, and how we've gotten in now. We've gotten into Afghanistan, which we aren't getting out of Afghanistan, and Syria, how we're getting into Syria. I have a great joy in watching Westy, General Clark. Said he's visiting the Pentagon one time, and a guy comes out there and says, "Sir, come in here." And he's retired. He says, "I'm retired." He says, "No, come in here." And he shows him a piece of paper. He says, "What's this all about?" He says, "We're going to take over 7 nations in the next 5 years." He said, "Well, maybe I should know, but how are we going to do that?" He said, "Why are we going to do that?" He says, "I don't know, sir." It was oil, probably still is oil, but we're getting there. Yeah, we're coming up now to you guys. If I'm talking to a younger audience, you can't even. I know when we used to. I was a baby and a kid, and we'd sit around the radio. Or as Biden said, "Oh, just get a record player and your shotgun, and you're good." This crazy bastard. Anyway, now we're starting to worry about real estate costs too high, food, and that's going high too. And he said, "Well, is it really going high, or does your money buy less?" And then we've got a lot of people that are telling you what's wrong here. You can't get any eggs. You can't get that. Gas is sky high. And you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe you don't think to yourself. You go down and have a couple of beers and you say, "To hell with it," which is basically what you should say, because there's not much you can do about it. God, don't run for dog catcher or just get to be a politician. What do you think you're actually going to do about it? Because the more stupid people there are around, ill-informed, and they think they're just as good as you are, and they know how to do it. They're going to have it, and by God, they're going to do it this way. And you got the black people. "Oh, we want to beat this. We were slaves." Hell, there's still slavery in northern Africa. Try the Sudan out sometime. The black people are still in slavery. And if you want to talk about being stupid on welfare, the black people and the Mexican folk, Latinos, as long as you're on welfare, you're a slave. You're a slave, and we're going on people. They got white hillbillies in West Virginia. They're the same damn thing. They steal from each other, and the biggest thing is growing pot in the outback there. So, but you're saying to yourself, "Oh, I'm a Christian, and God's going to rapture me out of here." But in the meantime, you have this niggling little thought about, well, what am I going to do in the meantime? So yourself says to you, well, I got to survive. I mean, God created us that way, to survive and procreate. That's really the only two, and to suck is about the only three or two instincts we have. But there's very few people that think, and when they do, maybe it was your grandfather. Your grandfather started the business, he started the farm. And then your dad carried it through, but then he had to go off to Vietnam. He had to go off to Korea. So the generation right now, you guys are about, what, 60? And you think you're going to retire, and there isn't going to be any Social Security for you. Now, when I tell you that, you've got two choices. You either listen and you think, well, what the hell is he talking about? Or they say, I don't care. I'm going to get mine while I can, or I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to have a good time because we're right there. And if I have to, I'll move off to Arkansas. Well, you watch these guys on television, like Viking Prepper, and you got all these preppers. No, they bought up all the land already. They don't want you out there because they sure as hell don't. If you got California plates, don't go to Oregon or Washington. On the other hand, there's too many Californians there now, and you know it's turned out in Portland. Try to go to Portland sometime. You will get this guy named Briggs on YouTube. He'll tell you what great places to go in each state, and what's where not to go. You don't have any choice, especially if you lose your job and you're 43 years old. And what are you going to retrain? Or you get out of the military, you retire. You retire to what? Your retirement won't buy anything, and you're stuck. So this thing about what's going to happen with the American dollar, and what are you going to do about it? Well, the preppers do have an idea that if you're going to survive, then you better start buying some food, buying some water, buying some gasoline, buying some ammo, buy yourself a weapon. My suggestion is, after 30 years in the military and taking some of the more police-oriented, SWAT team-oriented courses, you better know how to use the damn thing, and you better have a mindset that you're going to use it, and then you're either going to leave the area, but you don't hang around. You learned how to use it, you do what you have to do, and then you leave. You don't even stay to pick up the body and throw it in the dumpster. That's what real survival is. Then we have to, but that doesn't appeal to Christians. Christians were going to try to do what we try to do, and then the Lord's going to come back and rapture us out of here. And our money won't be worth anything, so buy gold and silver. Well, the system is already worked around you. They've got to work around. You got gold and silver, and who you gonna give it to, and what's it gonna be worth, and what are they gonna? What if they didn't in 1933? Didn't Roosevelt collect all the gold up? Well, they won't be able to do that again. Oh yeah, they will. You'll be called a hoarder. And how dare you keep your gold and silver? So that's what's going to happen. That's more bad news, right? So I can tell you that on the secular side of it, go ahead and I'd say get out of the city, but they all say get out of the city, and where are you going to go? We're getting pretty close now that you're going to buy something. Look, if you've got a mortgage, you never own that damn thing. The tax assessor owns it. the mortgage company owns it. And actually, you get yourself into the wrong type of mortgage, and they'll come out and take it away from you anyway, or you'll be accused of something. Now, it doesn't make any difference if you did or didn't. They'll drag you into court. A simple traffic citation. If you've ever looked at a ticket, it says notice to appear. And you sign it off, and it means I've got to make an appearance. And sometimes they say, well, no, you don't have to make an appearance. Just send the money in, and we'll let you go this time. It does go on your record. Your insurance may go up. They got you. Right now in this area, they say we're living in the last days. We probably aren't, but then again, if you got shot in World War II, that was your last day. If you in the Revolutionary War, in 1200 A.D., if you died on the battlefield, that was you were living in your last day. So the answer is, well, we have to America has to turn to God. But are there that many people still left that are going to really absolutely turn to God? And what's that mean? That gets to be very difficult because we've got all kinds of ministers. They say, I've got to have a jet, so give me a jet. I've got to have you've got to pay for this basketball stadium that we're in. You got to pay that, so give some money on that, But if you give your money to me, you're giving it to God. And there's ministries after ministries after they all want some money. And they say, you are supposed to tithe. And if you don't tithe to me or us or my church, then you're stealing from God. That's ridiculous because they don't read the Bible. First of all, why don't the Jews tithe today? Well, they don't have a Levitical priesthood to tithe to, and they don't have a temple to keep it in. Now, I know, they're going to build another one. I don't know how about that, but they got their mind up. And they might, Israel's falling out of favor. And they're always saying, well, we gave you one of our guys. I mean, Jesus was Jewish, wasn't he? Well, not exactly. He didn't get along with the Sadducees and Pharisees too well. And actually, he called them children of the devil. So if you don't have a minister and you don't have someone that's going to tell you how you're going to please God, you're always asking him for something. Well, what does he want you to do? And Christ, more or less, told us what he wanted us to do. Repent, be saved, start obeying the laws of God. Oh no, we can't do that. Well, you can stop murdering somebody, can't you? You can stop moving the lines, the guidelines of what your property stops at. You don't have to commit adultery, do you? It's not that hard to take God as your God. Nobody else. No other gods before me. He claimed that, that's what he wants. And so your money, you already know it in your heart. It's not going to be worth anything any longer. And we've got a demon-possessed administration that is hell-bent on taking us into World War III. He is. They are. And so we're right at the precipice here. We're at the peak of what may happen. And the Russians are more religious than we are now. Study Russian history, who they are. if the Russians were so bad, how could they have taken over so much property? They cover 8 time zones. We only cover 4. And the Russians, by the grace of God, threw off communism. The Chinese haven't exactly thrown it off, but they've freed people a little bit. Not much. But I think it's China that's going to be around here when the Lord does return. Anyway, you're only going to get that information if you read it yourself, because these ministers will not tell you what's really going to happen to you. They just want your money. Everybody wants your money, and pretty soon you won't have any. What are you going to do? There's enough people in there saying, well, people are going to start coming to you. They know that you're hoarding it. They'll take it away from you if you're not quiet about the whole thing. So what's going to happen to the money? It's going to be worthless. It's going to be worthless. And you should have enough things to barter. But there's a couple of, there's a dozen different ministries, and there's probably 25 different preppers on there telling us what to do. Well, I'd suggest, if you don't believe in the Lord that much, that He will look after you. If you don't do that, then you're going to look out after yourself. If you're going to do that, you also have the thing about family members that they don't believe the same way you do. The husband likes to drink a little bit too much, and he comes home, he doesn't believe in the wife. And the kids, this freak, these freaks that march into schools and just open up with AR-15s. They're freaks. Their parents know it, but the parents are freaks. You're not going to stop this, because everybody's saying, oh, well, I get my little place and time. No, that creature is not going to wind up in heaven. I'll tell you that right now. And the more people like that get destroyed, and we're taking apart the police department, used to have some authority. It used to have some status in town. You're on the sheriff's department, the police department. People did rely upon you to protect and to serve. Nobody does that anymore, and especially a certain segment of the population that thinks, oh, well, they have it coming to them, I'd say, like I say, better listen to some of these people. Get yourself, stock up with a little bit of stuff and start moving it out into an area where you'll be able to defend it. Start talking with some people that believe your way, and start to cooperate. But no, the money will not be any good much longer. There's a couple of different movies. I had a list here, The Big Short, the stock market, and what have you. But it's the Federal Reserve, and who controls the Federal Reserve is a little old lady with gray hair, moves back and forth between the Fed and the Treasury, back and forth, and a couple of other old gray-haired people that they won't live long. They won't live long enough to care about you. So yeah, be prepared for the money to go to hell, and probably Bitcoin, things like that. They're going to gain control over it by AI. They'll know everything. China, they have cameras everywhere, so it's no good news. So grab a Bible and at least be aware of the warnings that are contained in the Bible. You may survive for a while, but where are you going to spend eternity? You ever ask yourself that? If you don't care, go out and get high, get drunk, do some crazy stuff, because you're getting your reward now. But you are not going to be in the kingdom of God. I guarantee that. You will be done away with, you will not be remembered, and you'll be made ashes and gone. Anyway, that's the good news. The good news is read your Bible, New Testament, recognize what Yeshua, the Messiah, did for you, why he did it, and what's to come afterwards. And are you going to receive a crown? Are you going to be in charge of cities? Are you going to judge angels? A lot of promises there. That's the only advice I can give you. A warning. I'm not trying to convert you exactly. I'm doing my job. My job is to warn you. Anyway, I'll see you next time. I'll try to make as much informative videos as possible. Talk to you next time.